Okay. You ready?
Yeah. Hey, what's up, everyone? So, this is... Wait, what did I say?
You say your name.
Oh. Hey, guys. Welcome to the Church Podcast. My name is PJ.
And I'm Blake.
And today we're going to be discussing cultural value number 4, I believe.
Yeah, I think so.
Cultural value number 4 of our ex-church. And it is, we are audaciously generous.
Such a good one.
Yeah.
I mean, in the sense that there's a lot to share about this one. And it's interesting because one of the comments we got from one of our friends who used to go there with us, she was, asking about money and asking us to do an episode about money. So I was kind of thinking about doing maybe a mini series about money. Also, if we feel like this episode doesn't cover everything we want to cover about that.
I think we should just fit it in there.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. I kind of want to read what she said now again, refresh my memory.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. So while you are getting that pulled up, I feel like it's interesting because this was right before we left, and even after we left, one of the main reasons why that church isn't really a thing anymore is because there were so many money issues. And so I found it really interesting how one of the main things we were taught was to be generous, with our time, with our money, with every aspect of our life. And because the pastors were kind of shady about it, it ended up being...
About money?
Yeah, it ended up being one of the reasons why they are no longer an official thing, on top of a lot of other reasons, but...
It's so funny when you talk about, like narcissistic people, and it's like, they... what I'm thinking is how we always were taught, about being generous and, the tithe and offering and what the Bible says about money and all that stuff. And people don't, they would always say people come in and they manifest, as they say. Because if you have a problem with church talking about money, you must have a demon.
Exactly. Everything just goes back to demons.
So, and I agree, if you're stingy or if you don't really have any church history, and it is, it's apparently a non-profit, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't pay to go to Sunday service, so they have to have this source of income to exist. If pastors, that's their job, they do that full time apparently, and stuff like that. So going into that, not really having a church history, I think it is whoa, 10% of what I make, and mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't want to get into all the details of what a tithe is and stuff, but
yeah.
I was raised in church. I knew what tithing was, and when I first started going to this church, it was oh, you people actually expect 10%, an actual, the actual full 10%. The only experience I had was if we've helped you, help us out with a donation, buy some of our CDs or something, and my dad would give us $1 to toss in the plate every Sunday, So when I first started going there and I saw people cutting checks for $160 a week, I was damn, $160? You're gonna give $160, and it's you either bought into that or you just got super offended because we talked about it every week.
Mm-hmm.
There was a tithe message every single week before the actual message. And anyway, back to the narcissistic part of it. It was I feel the pastor would always throw out there, people want to always get funny about money, and kind of knocking them for not being generous. It's
yeah.
As soon as you bring up money, people get funny. And it's well, he was hella funny about money. Come on.
Seriously.
They were the funniest about money out of everyone. Because if you weren't tithing, it's like you just didn't have respect.
Well,
you didn't they didn't respect people that came and weren't generous.
Literally, they would check the tithing records of the people that were on the leadership team.
Mm-hmm.
And if you weren't tithing consistently, and they also kind of had a rough idea of what everyone made. So if you weren't tithing in full, or if you weren't doing all of that, like, you would actually get reprimanded, and you might even be kicked off the leadership team.
Right. Yeah, when I found out that they were checking people's tithes and they knew, like, the ranks of how generous people were, I was like, oh shit, I usually give in cash. Now I better start giving through the app so they know I'm not, a slouch here. And, so it's like, that's not even fair, because what if you give cash?
Yeah.
And usually I was so busy doing my job there, I didn't have time to get an envelope and write my name and make sure they knew it was from me. No, I knew God knows my heart. I'm just going to toss it in the pot, and that's good enough for me, but not for them.
No. So I had to make sure everyone was giving how much they were supposed to.
Yeah.
So that you could get God's full blessing. They're trying to look out for you.
Yeah. It's funny how they say it's like generosity, and we value being audaciously generous. It was almost like they intentionally were less generous because they wanted to give us the privilege of figuring out how to get the funds together for the stuff they wanted to do. Mm-hmm. So it's like, here, we love giving you the opportunity to be generous.
Yeah.
It's great for you to come here and give to us. And if you're a team leader, it's like, we kind of touched on that story. I don't know if we actually had that on the episode, but we were talking about how they asked for the budget for your department. What's your monthly budget or whatever?
Oh, we can get into that. Yeah.
Like, what's your monthly budget? Well, this is what we are basically paying out of our pockets for, and it would be great if we could have help with that, But then when we actually turned in our budget, it was like, okay, so we don't have that much money. What are you gonna do to raise that money? It's like, fuck, I fucking volunteer here. What are you talking about? I go to work every day. Like, you figure that out.
Yeah. So that.
And all these faithful tithers and offers, damn well those people, anyone who stuck around there, they bought into the things that we did, and they were audaciously generous, unreasonably generous, and so they had money. Yeah.
So, kind of that story we were talking about, I don't think it was on the episode. I think we were just talking one day. And so when that church had, like, big events like Easter and Christmas, things like that, the executive senior pastor would get all the department leaders together and be like, okay, like, dream with your team and figure out, like, what would be, like, the most awesome experience you could put on, like, for the kids in kids church, or, like, the best worship experience you could do, and, like, dream with your team and, like, have them figure it out. So it's, like, their idea, so they're bought into, like, what we're doing, and then figure out what you need to make that experience happen, get that budget together, and then bring it to me. We're all going to talk about it. Like, the whole Sunday night leadership team, we're all going to go over all of this and, like, figure out, like, what we can do, right? So, like, for us on the worship team, it was like, oh, like, we want to get, like, a fog machine and, like, cool lights. We're going to have this intro, bum, 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 and, like, set this whole experience. Kids' church was, like, having all this, like, crazy candy Easter bunny, like, egg hunt, like, all this stuff, And so we'd get our budgets together, and then since there was literally, like, just dream, do whatever you want, it was kind of like every department would be like $10,000 to $20,000 or something, like, absolutely ridiculous, And then she'd be like, okay, we have $2,000 total to spend on Easter. And it was like, why the fuck do we just do all of that work? I'm going to come back to our team and say, oh, actually, we're going to do nothing. We're going to be able to get you guys some new guitar picks that you need every other week anyway, maybe some new strings.
Yeah.
And if you want to do anything else cool, it's going to have to come out of your pocket. If you want to make that experience happen, then you're going to have to figure out how to raise the money from your team.
Thanks for the lesson.
Yeah. It's like, okay, well, like, my team is full of broke ass college kids, so like that's not gonna come from them. So it was just like it really sucked to like get your team fired up about something and then come back and be like, yeah, JK, we're not gonna do anything. We're actually gonna spend the whole $2,000 on renting 2 golf carts. So people that do come on Easter who are new are going to be like, oh, wow, these people are so cool. And they're going to come back and be like, oh, they don't normally have that. And the rest of the experience kind of sucks also. Anyway, that's where that came from. But you go ahead and read that comment.
Well, I don't know if I want to, I guess it's a public comment. Yeah, so anyway, this is from one of our friends, and she was, she'd been there like longer than I was, and was already, like serving on the worship team, and was there for pretty much every phase of that church, which was over a decade. And so she commented and about us talking about the money issue, which, being audaciously generous, was typically
Mainly
about
issue.
money. Yeah, there's other ways to be generous, but we were, I'm sure that when we like set that in stone, it was referring to your pay, your dues.
Yeah.
Paying your dues. Anyway, she said, I could go on a long rant, but I'll suffice to say that it still hurts. The years of my life in which I was supposed to be buying a home, building a nest egg, saving for retirement are gone. But I have so many memories of leaders talking like they knew anything and everything about money and business and entrepreneurship and blessing. Yeah, so that is so true. I mean, talk about like being manipulative.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's hard to pinpoint one instance where they acted like they were just an expert about things, and like, somehow, their little oikos just bought into it. It's like, oh wow, thanks for that wisdom. Wow, I never thought of it like that. Bleh. Like, it's just like, oh, when we go to churches, we always bring an offering. Mm-hmm. This is something we always do.
Go to a conference or something. Mm-hmm.
And maybe they did, but to me, it's like, talk is cheap. Like, what did you give? What is audaciously generous in your opinion? What are you doing? Mm-hmm. Because in the end, it looks like we were a lot more generous than you guys.
Yeah.
And you're just talking out of your ass with all this, all this expertise on business and entrepreneurship, and I don't doubt that they had some talent and skill. Obviously, they built a following, mm-hmm. But it was used like it was like they would use whatever they just read. They might have just read it the day before. They're reading some mm-hmm. leadership book, and it's like, let me teach you what I know. And just constantly talking about how much they know and shit, and even like the spiritual, aspects of it, just very focused on the scriptures that talk about tithing and offering and, the Lord's storehouse and I don't know.
Well, yeah, I feel like, just kind of going back to her comment, mm-hmm. I mean, it is really sad because that was a lot of people's stories. And that was how my story was turning out to be, yeah. Like, when I was there, with my ex. And mm-hmm. and it is really frustrating to feel like, okay, this is a time in my life where I've got, like, no kids, got a mortgage that's really small, less than most people's apartment rent there, and the perfect time to build up savings, redo some parts of the house I wanted to redo that were like really, really crappy, actually, not just like, I wasn't being vain about it, like we didn't have a floor in the bathroom, it was just mm-hmm. ripped up concrete. So but you were made to feel like you couldn't do those things that you wanted to do and save up what you wanted to save because you were storing up treasure in heaven.
Not directly made to feel like that, but if you weren't, you know, if you weren't audaciously generous in how you spend your time there, then you were like not accepted. Like you were like gossiped about. I mean, little petty things, not really like it wasn't like this like super traumatic moment where like if you didn't, if you didn't really please them, you just I mean, sometimes there was, but it was never like this huge um traumatic like moment. It was just you just kind of like gradually were like shown less and less respect. The reason I said all that was because if you weren't audaciously generous with your time and doing things for free there, serving and stuff like that, then there was no way to build up your career or have an education or do things that would actually make you somebody that is able to be audaciously generous. Like all the time we spent making fake budgets.
Mm-hmm.
It's like stuff like that. We could have as individuals really grown and established ourselves, built up a business. If they're so smart about entrepreneurship, why is the only thing we're really supported in doing is building your business essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so then you have people that are literally broke and we have no resources, and so we're supposed to reach the world with that. That's not audaciously generous. They're really ignorant actually. They were stupid about being audaciously generous because they cock-blocked people from being able to grow and become like thriving, prosperous people. And people that came in that were already like that didn't last long because they actually knew about those things. They're like, okay, I guess I don't fit here because I have this business. I do other things, and like you're asking too much of my time. Like you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't have a bunch of slaves that can be also audaciously generous with money they don't have because of you.
Yeah, it was like, exactly. It's like a catch-22. It's like, okay.
And you know what they would do too? I know I cut you off. I'm sorry. But it's like they wouldn't ever take responsibility for that. That's I mean, in so many ways. I guess I'm thinking specifically about the head pastor. He would turn it around on you. It's like, okay, well, that's your complaint. I didn't stop you from going and starting a company. Did I ever say don't do that? No, but you did with like the little nuances of like, well, if you want to be on Sunday nights, well, what are you leading? What team are you leading? How much are you serving and volunteering and all this stuff, that was actually the qualification to fit in there. It was it was very selfish for them, and I don't know. I'm trying to make sense of my point, but my point is just it got turned around on you. If we were to say something like this there, first of all, our tone would be way unacceptable. Like we would be, we would need to go to an encounter for how offended we are. But like, if we were to talk about these issues that we have with the being generous thing, or like her comment, I'm sure that they would just say some bullshit like, well, I'm not stopping you. You're welcome to leave. Tell them you're gonna slash their tires if they leave, honey. Sorry, I know I cut you off super bad. Go ahead.
It's okay. So, I mean, I was saying that it's a catch-22 because it's like on one hand, they're saying, okay, like, you need to be audaciously generous with your time and with your money. Both of them. So, if you have a person who's going to college, like so many people there, they were super audacious with Audaciously Generous with their time, right? Volunteering, leading teams, staying up late, like not doing their schoolwork, or to the point where a lot of them even dropped out of school. They didn't even finish school because they were so sold out for this thing, right? And then it's like, we can't do what we want to do because we don't have enough money, because the only people that are like the most bought in are all college dropouts, you know, and not the only, I mean, there was some with like jobs and stuff, but, you know, it's like, why wouldn't you say, hey, don't drop out of school, get a real job, and then you can, you know, give your time and your money, you know? And it's like, there were business people who came in and they were like, oh, like, you know, come volunteer. And like, they would get gossiped about if they weren't like volunteering enough. And it was like, these people are supporting our church financially. Like, I feel like they're both equal, you know? And that was really frustrating, because there were people with like real jobs doing hard work, giving way more than 10%, you know, and it's like, oh, well, they're not involved enough, you know, and they're not on a team. And then if they're on a team, it's like, well, they're not like leading on a team. They've been on this team for two weeks. Who are they leading, you know? And it's like, they just demand everything from everyone, and I feel like that's so unrealistic, and it really pushes like the good people out, you know, or makes them resentful, like us, and I'm sure many others
It's
left.
really, yeah. It's funny what you're talking about, to look back and see how that kind of became, you know, a weak link in the whole system, because having students leading because they have the time to lead, they have the time to, you know, go over to your daily meetings, like constant like volunteering.
Mm-hmm.
They end up rising through the ranks, and now all these new people that come in and they want to get involved, they're supposed to respect someone who's 17 years old as like a spiritual leader.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you know, and now because they're constantly around these people, they start to like fake talk like they know about entrepreneurship, and they know about being audaciously generous and building the church and winning the lost and all this stuff. And these, you know, old people with actual life experience and wisdom are like, what are you talking about, kid? Like, I don't think I want to be on this team. And ultimately, you have this whole team of young hotheads and no church to follow them, because it's just, it's silly.
Yeah. I mean,
Sorry.
Well, just like the team leader thing, it was like, your team leader is basically like your spiritual leader too, especially if you're not in a small group. And it's like, okay, well, you have this like 60-year-old like grandma serving in kids church, and then this 20-year-old is supposed to be like their spiritual leader. You know, I'm not saying like she can't respect her and like learn from her and stuff, but like, come on, that's just, if this lady has been a Christian for like her whole life, she could really teach the 20-year-old a ton, you know? And it was so much about rank there. It was like ridiculous. It's another topic, but
Yeah.
that was really annoying.
We are audaciously generous. I guess I have to say, the people who really bought into that and really got involved, and believed in the vision and believed in the, you know, reaching the lost, reaching the world, you know, we love this idea. And they were audaciously generous. Like I said before, like almost unreasonably generous. It's like you're cutting your own leg off because you're trying to be so generous, and they wouldn't stop you. You know, it's like the lady that commented, it's like, you know, she should have felt free to express those thoughts if she even had them then. Maybe she was just so bought in that it was like, oh, I don't want to think negatively of these people. You know, that's how I felt. But if it's like that guy, oh my gosh, you guys got to go and like search this what was it, deposition, is that what they call it, like where this guy David Taylor he's like a pastor, he's like a mega church pastor, I guess you could say.
Is he still?
I don't know, but he was he had to go to court basically, and he was questioned by like the IRS or something, because of issues. You should just go look it up. David Taylor. And there was a lady who gave her like entire retirement. It was like over $1 million. And that's audaciously generous. And that's probably like everything she had. And it's funny, that reminds me, they would use that scripture about the lady who gave her 2 pennies. And it's like, she gave more than these guys giving bags and bags of money because that was all she had. Well, that's great. That was her decision. But you don't like condemn people for not being that person.
Right.
Anyway, so this, people would come in and just give and give and give, and to the point where they're struggling financially. Wouldn't you think somebody that was like a good, like, shepherd would say, like, it's okay, like, for now, it's okay to just give what you can. Give what you can. You have kids to raise. Like, you need to get established in life. We really want to see you grow. I mean, I feel like in a sense that would be them being audaciously generous, but they were audaciously greedy, so they didn't stop people from doing that.
Well, because their whole mindset that they infiltrated everyone with was, if you like support God's family, he's going to support your family.
Yeah, if you build God's house, he'll build your house.
There you go. So we would build and build and build into the church.
Somehow stone and wood is going to appear and materialize into a house for you because you're focusing all your energy on. So stupid and manipulative.
Yes, and gosh, and it's so true. Like, I mean, I had that mindset too. Like, especially like after I had that miscarriage, there was another person that also had a miscarriage, and it's like we were working so hard, and it's like, well, okay, so it's like we were both working, and I don't know if there's other people that had them too there, but we were both working like so hard, volunteering all the time, not getting enough sleep, really not eating right. And it's like, you think the pastor could have said, maybe, like, you need to slow down a little bit. Obviously, your body, like, it's too stressed out or something. Like, let's figure something out, so that your body's ready to carry a baby. Maybe you're doing too much. No, it was just work harder, and the harder you work, the more God is going to bless you. The more you give...
We'll break this curse off you.
Yes. The more you give to the church, the more God is going to bless you and reward you. And also reward you in heaven too. Because don't forget, we're doing all of this on earth so that in heaven for eternity, we can live in a mansion and rule cities and have a crown with a bunch of jewels on it from all the people that we saved here on earth. And it's like... It was really very materialistic in a way, thinking about heaven as so, like, that in that way, Yeah. So, anyway, I feel like that was the main thing is, like, if you're generous here, God's going to bless you. And if he's not, you need to give more. You need to give till it hurts. They would say that. And so it's like little things like that they would say that was like, okay, so I'm going to, give my whole entire commission check for this month so that we can get some new flags so people can see us on Easter instead of like making my bathroom functional, which would make me a more happy and pleasant individual.
I think it really comes down to the accountability factor that was not present there. You couldn't call them out. You couldn't correct the pastors. You couldn't ask to see where finances are going. They didn't have. There was no teamwork involved with how finances were delegated, and so, I believe in investing in your business. You take what you have and the signs, the flags. Maybe that was probably a good idea. That might help, bring people in to such an unhealthy place. It's like, what good does it do if, you're really good at attracting people and drumming up business, but then you do a shitty job, basically. That's, it's like business. It's like, well, okay, so like I'm taking, and I'm reinvesting money back into the business because that's what you need to do to grow. But it's like people would come into a place that was just not healthy.
And then
If there, I'm almost
Sorry,
done
go
with that
ahead.
thought. Like if there was really close, true accountability to where funds went, where money went, then there would be, it's like two heads are better than one.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, it's just a fact. But that didn't happen. So greed creeps in, selfishness, whatever creeps in, or it's already there. We're all selfish. So it's like, oh, cool. Well, damn, someone gave extra this month. Maybe we can go on a vacation. Maybe we'll send Pastor on a vacation and really honor him.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we'll just lease a couple brand new cars. We have the ability to do that now.
Mm-hmm.
While everyone who's being audaciously generous is stuck with
Broken down cars.
yeah, broken down cars. Anyway, I lost my train of thought, but
Sorry.
no, it's not your fault. It's just that's what happened. It's like I do feel like the concept of like reinvesting into the business, that's great. We do need to improve things, but ultimately there was one person in the role of like leading the vision, all this stuff. It wasn't a team. It was one inebriated person.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Well, I mean, what you were saying about the cars, too, that's where I was going to go in a sec, because I feel like all of these cultural values are supposed to start from the top and trickle down, And so the head pastors are supposed to be the most audaciously generous. So what do? They lease two very expensive cars. First of all, leasing is honestly like, in my opinion, unless you're like a millionaire, like kind of stupid. So anyway, so they would do that, and they're really nice cars, and they would say that they needed them so that if a speaker came into town, they could pick them up like in that car. So they had to look great, picking the speaker up and driving around town and like putting off this image as if they were like doing really well when really they weren't, and then they had the house that was like paid off, so they didn't really have any bills on the house. And so then they got the church together and had a praise party at the end of the year in 2017, right? Going into 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And they got the church to raise $65,000 to pay off personal, dig it, to pay off the pastor's personal credit cards.
Honestly, I'm starting to get to the point where I don't think we need to like not name names. I think it's kind of like it might be like a little too courteous. I mean,
Okay. Anyway.
at least you didn't say Pastor.
Oh my God. I would never again.
First name Pastor. Middle name. I think it actually was his middle name.
It was actually his middle name, which is funny. Anyway, so the church paid off his personal credit card debt that he used when the church was going through a bad season to pay the rent. Apparently, that's what he said. Honestly, no one on the leadership team saw those receipts, so it's really hard for me to believe now, looking back, that that's actually what that debt like went towards, honestly. Have no idea. But I do know that that much money was raised, and it did pay off that debt. And then what did they do? They went and bought like over $500,000 house. And their house they had was perfectly fine. It had a pool, had plenty of rooms, could have used a little bit of updating, some chip paint and baseboards here and there, but like it was fine. This other house was obviously like really awesome and new. But it's like, okay, so you want us to be audaciously generous, and then here you are, like, your kids have moved out of the house. Your house that you have now is even, like, you don't even need a house that big. If you want us to be audaciously generous, why don't you sell your house, get cash for it, buy a small house,
and
give the rest to the church.
It probably came from, like, some deep-seated resentment for the church, keeping one or both of them from their fortune, It's like they probably had dreams of being able to do that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are serving you, so like this is just something we, it's like we earned this. So we just stopped filming and realized that the camera shut off for some reason, so we are going to try and just wrap it up and possibly repeat some stuff, but we'll probably just edit that out if it is.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I think I just was concluding that I believe, overall as a church, that the people who came in and liked the cultural values, and stuff, like the cultural value of being audaciously generous was pretty much accepted by people, and they were very generous, whether that generosity was in vain or misused.
Mm-hmm.
I think, people at that church were definitely very generous, like religiously generous,
Mm-hmm.
which may or may not be a good thing. But, yeah, I feel like it's not that hard for me to look back and still appreciate all the good things that we experienced there, typically within, like, friend groups.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. Most of the pain came from like leadership and servitude, but the actual people, members and people that visitors and stuff, it was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of generosity.
Yep. I agree.
Anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think that was a great explanation.
Okay. Yeah, I do feel like, not everything that came out of the leaders' mouths was bullshit. A lot of it was
90%.
stuff they read out of,
Like 90% of it was.
A lot of it was with the wrong heart and intention, but
Yeah.
a lot of the stuff that happened there, was taught there, was bullshit, and a lot of it was actually, from their studying of leadership material and entrepreneurship, material and stuff. So not everything they said was bad, but most of what they did was.
Yeah, it's like how they interpreted what they learned,
Mm-hmm.
and how they taught it to us then was the way that it was hurtful.
Yeah, so I feel like there was a lot of authenticity amongst the membership and the teams and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you like this episode, hit the like button, subscribe, and please check out our website, arroweden.com. Maybe we'll link that in the description. That is where we are selling some products that we designed and made. And that is how we're trying to survive right now during this post-pandemic life.
Yeah.
All right.
And then, well, also, so next time we film, we're probably going to film a couple of episodes at a time because we have some family stuff going on next week. So if you guys have any stories or experiences to share about the cultural value, we are mothers and fathers of multitudes, and we value level 5 good to great leadership. Just send us a DM or a comment or whatever.
Yeah. Yep. Use us as your outlet. We'll vent for you.
Yeah.
Love you guys.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.